As unbelievable as this might seem, the starting place for Deadwood can be found in the book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 12. Suppose the foot says, "I am not a hand, so I don't belong to the body." By saying this, it cannot stop being part of the body. And suppose the ear says, "I am not an eye, so I don't belong to the body." By saying this, it cannot stop being part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, how could it hear? If the whole body were an ear, how could it smell? God has placed each part in the body just as He wanted it to be. If all the parts were the same, how could there be a body? As it is, there are many parts, but there is only one body. At the time of the show's development, David Milch could quote that passage off the top of his head, and while the verses were a lesson to the early church, Milch uses the mining camp of Deadwood to prove the same point. Milch's interest in this philosophy apparently comes from his friendship with a Catholic priest who viewed himself as a Paulist, and was the inspiration for Milch's original pitch for a show set in ancient Rome. Milch has recounted that they discussed their Paul series on the man's deathbed, with Milch promising that one day the show would enter this world. The Paulist point of view on Deadwood is presented by Reverend Smith, a character based on the actual chaplain of the camp, a man with no interest in gold but a calling to witness to the prospectors. Smith also suffers from a brain tumor and becomes increasingly unbalanced as the episodes progress. Interestingly, Milch has his own perspective spoken by a mentally damaged man, viewed by many as a pest. This might have been a private joke on his part, or just a way to work in the theme without having the message come across as a pious sermon. Aside from establishing the series' overall theme, the Reverend Smith arc from Season 1 is absolutely heartbreaking. The dynamic between Reverend Smith and Al Swearingen is fascinating, with Swearingen offering an unexpected kindness to the feeble pastor who suffers from the same seizures that afflicted his younger brother. Deadwood is perhaps not the show Milch's friend thought he was getting, but the show does express certain views on God, community, and man's obligations towards his fellow man. Philosophy is just as important to the show as character development, with each arc addressing issues of identity, loyalty, a community's birth, and how exactly civilization can be created out of chaos. It's also the most vulgar show in the history of American television, a series so profane, even HBO had qualms about the use of language. When the controversy first surfaced regarding the liberal deployment of profanity in Deadwood, viewers might have assumed it was simply David Milch expanding on the groundwork he'd laid with NYPD Blue, a calculated fusion of highbrow and lowbrow, baiting viewers with crude language while offering intellectually weighty material beneath the grime. There was also speculation that Milch might be satirizing audience expectations for pay cable drama, essentially declaring, "You want vulgarity? Watch what I can do." That assumption, it turns out, was off the mark. Two primary justifications have circulated regarding the show's unabashed use of modern profanity, deploying F and C-bombs with such abandon that even Tarantino might blush. When the series first aired, reps for the show suggested the coarse language was necessary to emphasize the brutal, anarchic nature of Deadwood itself. A casual hell or damn may barely register with modern audiences, but such language in the 1870s would have been genuinely scandalous. Updating the vocabulary, they argued, was essential for conveying just how foul-mouthed and dangerous the environment truly was. Over the years, however, David Milch doesn't seem to have bothered with that argument. He contends the use of profanity on the show is historically accurate, based on his study of primary documents of the time. In venues like New York Magazine, Milch defended the use of profanity, using these arguments. As for why the characters swear so much, Milch compares the vocabulary to a primate grunting and threatening another primate. His premise is that in this lawless town, everyone had to jealously protect his belongings and keep strangers at a distance. Salting every sentence with profanity is a way of saying, "We're not friends and you ain't touching my, well, stuff," with each breath. Although that doesn't explain why friends and allies consistently use this language amongst themselves. The issues with profanity go back to the earliest development of the series, when Milch actually wrote a paper citing his historical research and presented it to HBO executives in order to justify his belief that, yes, people did talk this way. A recurring insult on the show, this one oddly quaint, is the occasional use of the old slang "hoop ol' head." It's a term for a backwoods rube, but apparently its origin can be traced to an early 20th century radio program, not the 1800s. Supposedly, Milch just liked the sound of it.